All right, AP Human Geography. The third, and pretty sure, pretty sure, almost totally sure. Yeah, I'm sure. No, third and final part of Unit 2. And it's going to be all about migration. I think we have beat population pretty much to the dirt. And I think there's too much more that we can detail about that. So the rest of this, yes, is going to be about what happens when we have movement going on in different places within countries, from country to country, all that sort of thing. So we'll start you off with that definition that you see there under A. And that's about as straightforward. Matter of fact, you will recognize something very similar to that on your vocabulary list that you just received. And so the key one to note on there is just that idea that it can be permanent or semi-permanent. Okay, I mean the idea of people moving from one place to another. I think that's pretty easy to wrap your brain around. Some people sometimes can get a little bit thrown off. They think that it's only when you move somewhere with no intention of ever moving again, or you see it as a permanent move. But no, even semi-permanent, where it's temporary, is also still an example of what we call migration. Okay, migration breaks down into, well, you could kind of guess because it's APHUG, into a whole lot of different kind of subsets. The first basic one is to differentiate between voluntary and involuntary migration. Voluntary is just like it says there. That is when you are making the decision on your own, of your own free will, and it's a move you're making because of factors that you personally are taking into consideration in making the decision to move from one place to another. Typically, what comes into play when we talk about voluntary migration is a combination of what are called push factors and pull factors. Push factors, and what you're going to want to associate with push is negative circumstances. So, what are the kinds of things that are going to make you want to move from one place to another that aren't good things? Okay. Those could be things like, if you're living in a place where, well, if you look at some of the examples down the side here, I mean, they kind of cover things like, it might be warfare, and you're moving to avoid violence due to warfare. It might have to do with environmental factors that are making life challenging in a place that you're at. But I mean, we can go in a lot of different directions as well. Those negative circumstances could be the economics changing in a certain part of a country or a region that is making maybe employment a real challenge. Could be crime rates, those kinds of things. There's a long list, and you'll get into some of these when you start digging into migration in your textbook and some of the other work that we'll do. But it's anytime you have something it's a bad thing, and it is making you consider wanting to move away from a place. Pull factors are the positive things that are bringing you to a new place. Okay, and so when most people are voluntarily migrating, it's a combination of push factors and pull factors. Although sometimes you'll find that one of them is a primary factor, and the other a little bit more secondary. So pull factors are going to be the positive circumstances, and again, if I'm looking at my little picture over here and it's giving some examples, it could be access to better health care. It could be employment opportunities. It could be educational opportunities. It could be security kind of issues. So there's other things that you could be thinking about that are pretty much telling you, this is why I want to go to this place, right? And those would be what we call the pull factors, right? So know the difference between those two. The push is the negative. The pull is the positive. Okay, and whatever kind of little little tricks or mind games you gotta kind of attach with that to help you to remember it. I'm sure that you will. All right, Let's drop that down and get into this right here. And so we'll talk about we'll break a couple of these down and look at them in a little bit more detail. So economic push pull. Unemployment being a very negative kind of situation when you lose a job or you're struggling to find a job because maybe there's not a lot of opportunities. That would definitely be a push factor. Okay, something like that going on. And then where you see an area in the country where maybe there are lots of new industries popping up and job opportunities that are opening up, then that's going to be a pull factor. Okay, think of those as some examples right there. Social push and pull. When we think of that, oops, get these in order. Sorry. Uh, if you are living somewhere where maybe because of your beliefs, maybe because of your faith, maybe because of your ethnicity, the list could go on and on and on, but you are feeling discriminated against. You are feeling like you're being singled out. You feel like maybe a government is coming after you and treating you differently in a bad way. Those kinds of issues of discrimination and or persecution can end up being big push factors that get people to try to move elsewhere. A pull factor, when we talk about social aspects of it, when we talk about the influence of kinship links. And what we see a lot of times with pull factors, and we'll break this down a little bit further later on, but when we talk about that kinship links, kin is family, okay? And so we do see that one of those real positive kind of social pull factors is going somewhere where maybe there's already other family members living, and that being the attraction. That's the pull, is to be with other members of your family. So that could be an example there. Okay, and then out of order, but political push-pull. A dissident is a word that describes someone typically who does not agree with the kind of maybe the prevailing political system in a country. Maybe they have major issues with the way that laws operate or way that a government operates in terms of representing the will of the people or not. People who break with that and have beliefs that go counter are what we call dissidents. And a lot of times political dissidents, I mean, we here in America, we like to kind of believe that, you have the freedom to disagree with your government. You can't go threatening violence against them and plotting and, that sort of thing. But you can hold views where you disagree with your government. You can be public about that. You have a freedom of speech protects those kinds of things. Some countries don't have that. And so people who don't agree with their government, don't agree with their leaders, can very quickly end up having themselves in a lot of trouble. And that is the dissidence we talk about there. And that can be a push factor where people who find themselves in that situation, are going to be people who potentially are going to be looking to get out of the country or the region that they're in. And then a pull factor is a place that they see as promising more freedom for them. A place that will be more tolerant of maybe them having different points of view, and something that will allow for them to, like it says there, to seek asylum. And asylum is usually a process of gaining basically like a form of political recognition in another country. And so, you think about here in the United States, we have a lot of people who are always immigrating into the United States, legally, some illegally. Many of them are working their way through the process of trying to seek asylum in the United States. In other words, they're saying, I'm not safe in the country that I come from, and I wish to come to the United States because I will feel safe. And that is the asylum they're seeking. Asylum, they're seeking that safe place, and whether that's to escape, whether it's crime gangs and organized crime, whether it's political, governments that don't treat their people well, those kinds of things, and people who find themselves on the kind of the bad end of those kinds of situations are the ones usually who are looking for asylum. A place that will offer them kind of a, shelter from the storm, kind of, so to speak. All right, drop that one down, and we'll move into here. Some environmental examples of push-pull. When we talk about natural disasters, I was not that long ago, I was watching some news coverage here about Hurricane Ian down in Florida here just in the last month, and interviewing some local people down there, and and I was kind of struck by one of the folks who was being interviewed and said that this was like their third major hurricane that they had gone through, and they had lost their home, and they said they were moving out. They were leaving Florida. They just said, I've rebuilt twice. I'm not going to do it a third time, and so we're leaving. That's a classic example of an environmental push factor, where you live in a region where it's a repeated process, whether it's tornadoes or hurricanes. Now we're starting to see more and more here out in the West. These areas that every year are under threat of wildfire. And when people reach the end of their patience, I mean, a lot of times if people have strong connections to a region, they will. If they end up suffering damage because of a natural disaster, a lot of them will rebuild. They'll try to stick around, but we also see the flip side of that, which is that when people have it happen to them repeatedly, a lot of them finally just say, I give up. I got to go find somewhere that doesn't have these kind of dangers, where I'm not having to start my life over again. And, I mean, beyond that, putting my life at risk, my family's life at risk. So that would be something there. And sure, where they're usually wanting to move to is a place that, okay, I want to go somewhere where there's not any hurricanes. Of course, typically speaking, that's going to always be a matter of, some cost benefit. You decide to move out of Florida and move instead to maybe up north to Kentucky. Well, every once in a while, Kentucky gets hit by some pretty bad tornadoes, so you're trading one for the other. You want to move all the way out west here? Well, get ready to, number one, wildfire season. And then also, the West is also known for other kind of environmental potential push factors, things like earthquakes, things like volcanoes. There's not really a safe area that is going to just be, that is never impacted by anything. But it's all kind of, again, it's a little cost plus, as you kind of figure out the benefits. Yeah. Okay. Demographic push pull. This is when you have people who are responding to, demographics, just the way that population is kind of one of our terms from the population part of this unit, and the different aspects of population. Well, I mean, when we're talking about people who begin to feel like they're being crowded out of the area that they live in, to a certain extent, I guess I could say there was kind of a push factor when I moved out from Pierce County up in Washington and moved down to the Oregon coast. I mean, there are probably other places I could have gone to, but I was getting tired of sitting in traffic just to do anything that I needed to do. I lived in a part of the county that was building up very quickly and was becoming what I believed felt kind of overpopulated. Not enough roads to handle all the people that were moving in, and and all their cars, that sort of thing. So sometimes that's a push factor, and I'm living proof. All right. And then another way that we can look at this as well is that sometimes people move out of factors that go beyond just the number of people and get more into just kind of what kind of people, and can be gender imbalance. We're seeing signs of some people here in the United States that are moving from one place to another because they want to be around people who share their political viewpoints, and they may feel like they're living in an area where not many people share their same politics. There's other kind of demographic issues. Sometimes it can be connected to religious factors. There's a lot of different directions you can go with that. When we're talking about the demographic aspect of things, and get into some of those cultural kind of things. All right, intervening obstacles. Topic we'll jump into here, and these are the things that kind of get in the way of being able to migrate from one place to another. When we talk about, I mean, just think about obstacles, the term itself. Okay. And those intervening obstacles are things that can complicate when someone feels like, whether it's because of any of those push-pull factors we talk about up there, whether it has to do with a job, whether it has to do with demographics, wherever you may be going with it. But, when you literally feel like you need to move, you want to move, but moving isn't cheap. Okay, I mean, usually it means you have to relocate, you have to find a new job, you have to find new housing. Housing in most parts of the world, including here in the United States, is challenging right now. It's not cheap. Sometimes there's just not. It's supply and demand, and there's not a lot of actual supply, and so the demand is high, which means the prices are high, and so those are the kinds of things that you can get in the way. Um, and a political intervening obstacle is what you've got right there. Again, every year, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people try to get into the United States, many of them seeking asylum. Not all of them are granted asylum. There are judges who hear their cases, and some of them say, things aren't that bad at home. And we have enough immigrants right now in our country to take care of whether it's our job shortages, things like that. And so a lot of people who want to immigrate into the United States are denied that permission. Their visas, their requests for asylum are turned down. And that is something that just doesn't happen here in the United States. That plays out in a lot of other countries. Many other countries, they have migration laws and immigration laws as well. They limit how many people can move into their countries every year because they don't want to end up with a situation where they have too many people that that can't find work, and so they're looking to others to have to try to help to support them. Those kinds of things. Okay, so that is those political intervening obstacles exist in a lot of different places. And then sometimes there is just environmental intervening obstacles. These aren't as big a deal now as they used to be. But, in the past, when transportation was not as easily accessible as it is now, sometimes you had, whether it was oceans, whether it was mountain ranges, and sometimes, you wanted to get to the other place and you couldn't. Maybe someday you'll if you take some American history, maybe some of you already have learned about the Donner Party. We're trying to get from get to California back in the 1840s, and they couldn't quite get over the Sierra Nevada mountains. Got caught up there during the winter time, and well, let's just say that was a story that ended up involving cannibalism. Yeah, it can get complicated. But like I said, not quite as complicated nowadays because of the technologies that we have. But environmental issues definitely more of intervening obstacles in the past. All right. What are we doing for time? 17 minutes in. I'm taking it a little bit further. Let's talk about Ernst George Ravenstein. Okay. Another one of these guys going back in time. Here he is. And this is a guy who develops what we're going to call these laws of migration. Okay. And some people refer to them as patterns. I'll usually refer to them more as laws. And Ravenstein he was this, like it says there, he was this geographer from Germany. I say he's Ernst George. It's probably more like, Jorge or something like that. But anyhow, in 1895, he publishes some of his works where he explains what he calls his 8 laws. And this is something that we still can see. These patterns, these laws show up nowadays. They seem to have held up pretty well over time now, considering that they are, over 100 years old. Let's take a look at them here. A lot of these I don't need to talk a whole lot about them. Most of them, it's like, kind of like, I don't know. Every once in a while, you get something like this, and you're thinking to yourself, I could become a famous person in whatever history, geography, because a lot of these laws seem pretty common sense. Law number 1, I don't know if it gets a lot more commonsensical than this. You got it there. I don't need to explain it to you. You do, we talked about distance decay in Unit 1. And this is kind of a application of distance decay when we're looking at the bigger topic of migration. Okay, and it's just kind of like the longer the distance is between 2 points, the less likely you're going to see migration happen. Not saying it doesn't happen, just saying that most migration that takes place usually occurs in short distances. All right. Law number 2. is this idea of urban areas. Remember, when you hear urban, you think city. Okay, and we do find that here in the United States and other parts of the world, okay, that typically new migrants head to big cities. And why do they do that? Well, because that's where there are jobs. A lot of times that's where there are going to be other migrants already there who might speak their same language and share the same culture. It's also in big urban areas, typically there's going to be support services that might be available for new migrants to kind of help them, kind of ease in and make that transition all the more easier. And so law number 2, urban areas. Okay. And then kind of very tightly connected to this is what we refer to as the gravity model of migration. And you can kind of think of it like the little magnet you see over there. Okay. And yeah, whether you're looking at a fairly large town, whether you're looking at a big city like Paris in France, a big city like Frankfurt in Germany, or some of our bigger cities here in the United States. You look in a city like New York or Los Angeles, you're going to see large migrant populations in there. And again, some of it, well, to me, there's a lot of connection between Law 2 and Law 3. And, I think if you're kind of looking at it, you can see it yourself as to why we see those pull factors be stronger the larger any kind of urban area or community is. All right, that's law number 3. Law number 4, step migration, one of your vocabulary terms. And you kind of have a definition of it right there. And that is that people a lot of times don't necessarily make this one single move. If it's someone coming from, from Guatemala and their ultimate goal is they want to be in New York City, they want to immigrate to the United States and they want to go to the Big Apple. Usually that's not going to happen directly. They're going to march their way up to the southern border of the United States. They're going to put in their application, whether they're asking for asylum, whether they are applying for a visa, but usually they're going to end up going somewhere else first. Maybe they're going to first settle in Texas, okay? And then from Texas, maybe they're going to migrate to Missouri. And then from Missouri, they're going to migrate to Ohio. And then from Ohio, they're going to, it's going to be, like it says, your definition there, these series of small moves. Typically, it's going to be a way for them to make it more affordable for them to reach their ultimate destination, and then also gives migrants a chance to kind of acclimatize to new environments as they get closer and closer to their ultimate destination. But usually we do. We see that we don't get this one big grand move from point A to point B. Instead, it's a lot of little points in between, and that usually means a little bit more time involved too. And so, it might take a number of years before that person ultimately gets to the place that they truly want to be. Okay, get you halfway through. Law number 5. Again, tying back to number 2 and 3, rural to urban areas. We see that a lot of those migrants who move to big cities come from very more of your kind of farming territory, kind of out there in the country, and wherever they're coming from. But these rural areas where there wasn't a lot of urban buildup. And that's just typically people who have discovered that living in the rural areas, and wherever they come from, they begin to identify that with limited opportunity. Okay, in rural areas, they tend to be here in the United States and other parts of the world. They tend to be typically, centered around agriculture, things like that. Usually centered around very few limited. If there is industry, it's usually going to be very limited. And to them, these urban areas represent more opportunity and maybe a richer variety of opportunities that are available to them. And so that's where we see most of them move from rural to urban. Law number 6, counter migration. All right. This is where we see, yes, each migration flow, and then we get this kind of coming back the other direction. Why does this happen? Well, some of this gets into push-pull factors we talked about. As more and more migrants center in on maybe specific urban areas, they begin to kind of pump up the population of that urban area in such a way that some people begin to move away from that because their identity, it's getting crowded here, and so that people who would then move and leave because of these new migrants coming in, we would call that an example of counter migration. Okay, sometimes enough migrants come into an area where it does start to tilt the employment scene, and what had been a healthy employment scene in terms of supply and demand begins to tighten up, where there's not as many job opportunities, and so some people are going to leave the area for somewhere else. Again, another example of counter migration, because they see that economically things are tightening up because of migration. Okay. Law number 7. Yes, we do see the vast majority of migrants, whether it's within a country or migrants moving from one country to another. This is usually the realm of younger people. And hopefully that kind of makes sense. I mean, younger people have the energy, they have the drive. By the time you're kind of over that 45 age hump there, you're getting into, Mr. Floyd age range. It's like, do I really want to yank up and, move across country and stuff like that? I got guys, just look at my closet. I got so much stuff. It's complicated, and typically younger people, don't have all of that kind of accumulation to drag along with them, and they're a little bit. It's easier for them to move around. And I think a lot of times we can also talk about the idea that a lot of younger people, have a little bit more open minds about trying new places, a little more adventurous, and we have this kind of tendency as we get older to sometimes to get I don't know, a little more set in our ways, maybe a little more conservative. I don't know how you want everyone to describe it. But yeah, one of Ravenstein's laws, law number 7 there, that we're going to see those migrants on the younger side of things. All right. And then law number 8. And that is, oh, hold on here. All right. Sorry about that. I had a dog disruption, but it's over now. All right. Anyhow, law number 8. 8 of 8. Okay. And that's your other one that you've got there. And another kind of one of those truisms of immigration. All kinds of theories as to why that is. Some having to do just with issues of personal safety, and the fact that sad commentary but true, that in a lot of parts of the world, including here in the United States, where a lot of crimes are more likely to happen to women than men. There's that aspect of it. The other aspect of it has to do with just work availability, and the fact that that as you go from country to country, region to region around the world, there's still a lot of parts of the world where women are either discouraged from working in a lot of different areas, to just having different kinds of limitations. Some of them are legal limitations, some of them are cultural limitations, and so you combine those together, and the end result is a lot of times. You're going to see more of that movement on the international scale being done by males. When it talks about internal migrants, and that means people moving from place to place within a country, not actually moving from one country to another. That's where the rule kind of gets flipped, and so you will see most of that being female on the other side. So there you go, a little bit of all that. All right. And then I think, where are we going from there? Where are we going? Global migration through history. Well, let's tell you what. We're just going to get a little start going on this, and this is where I'll pick it up actually in the classroom, because we're going to take a little quick spin through history, and take a look at migration patterns and movements. And really, you can just get what I've got right there, which is kind of the whole idea that that a lot of migration stays relatively kind of stable. I mean, there's everything from going back to the original migrations of people from our origins in kind of East Africa, and then spreading, north, south, east, west from there. But when we start talking about real major migrations, especially some of that international migration, that is going to happen basically after the kind of 1500s, during that age of exploration, when you start having, whether it's Columbus or Magellan, and all this exploration, and then all the movement of people that comes after that. But like I said, I'll pick up on that in more detail in the classroom. Okay, that gets us right in there, about 30 minutes. And so there we go. You got that, and we'll pick it up from there. Thanks. See you in class.